Alright, what's up guys? This is One-Eyed Joe here with another chess analysis video. Same game, but I made a crappy version of this and I wanted to make a higher quality one. It's an analysis of the same game I just uploaded, but from the other player's perspective. So, if you remember, his first move was with this pawn, and he decided to move it up one square to this square, which I think is perfectly appropriate, but timid. He could have also been more, had more gumption and gone up to here and taken some space in the center. And then, and he eventually does do that, but it takes him a while. So his first move is to take this pawn and, move it up. That's his very first action was to do that. And then I was debating on what to do. I usually like to keep it, like when I see people do things like that, I like to do this because, and I think the reason I'm recording it from his perspective is I kind of want to get into his head and see what he was seeing. So, I took it slowly and just did, I think, the ready opening, which is this. You just put your knight out. So I just put it there, and I wanted to see what he was going to do. If he was going to move this up one more, or if he was going to maybe bring this knight out, or put his bishop here. There's various things you can do. But instead, it would appear that he just moved it up one more. So he played e4. And at this point specifically, there is no knight defending this, so I could have taken it, and I probably should have. The engine says I should have taken it. And then his best move would have been, after that, knight c3. So that would have been his response. So it would have gone like this, takes, and then his best move would have been, well, actually, it would have been d3 probably, because you're going to just kick that knight out. So d3 to kick the knight out. Oops, d3 to kick the knight out. And then it would have been a whole different game, because I would have probably moved my knight probably back to f6. And yeah, that's the top engine move too. So but that's a whole different game. So I've actually made a whole variation of what I should have done according to the engine. Then there's this. This is another thing, a sub variation. That then these pawns eventually move up and meet each other. So we have d3. So this is the variation. He then plays. It said before d4, and then I should play d5. That was what the engine came up with. So I think the engine might have been smoking some crack, but that's okay. It has a problem. We need to treat it with respect. So anyway, he makes his first move, which is that. He didn't move up to here. He just casually moved. Anyway, so then we have my knight f6 move, which is really fun. And then he makes his nice little advance to there. And of course, I met him right in the middle. And that's what that's pretty typical chess. E4, E5. King's pawn opening. So I would have just considered this king's pawn opening when it says it's A00. Vont cruises. I have no idea what the hell that is. I don't know. I've never heard of that. But at this point, it doesn't say that it says his best move would have been D3 actually here. So his best move would have been D3 to kind of close that off and give some protection to that, because otherwise I can still just take. D3 and then, D5 for me, and then we've closed it off. And that would have been the best move. But then he moves his bishop out to here. So let's examine that a little closer. So you have your bishop. You decide you're going to move it over to here. And okay, that is actually a pretty good tactic. I like how he did that. I would commend him for that, because he seems to understand pins. that is stopping me and preventing me from doing what I wanted to do. See, I wanted to move this to this square right here. And I would have loved to move it to that square. And when it's moved to that square, I just, move it here. It's on a nice, comfortable square. And, then it gives nice defense to this pawn. And that would be my ideal setup right there, is that. But he prevented that. I literally cannot move this pawn at all, because I would put myself in check, and that's against the rules of the game. So that was a pretty good move. He pinned it to the king, because the king's exposed after that. So, I mean, I don't know how new you are, so I'm just over-explaining, I know. But then, next move at the main line is, of course, I just wanted to move my bishop up to a safe square. So I moved it to here. I figure there's nothing much wrong with taking this bishop and moving it to here, because, well, it just seems it's a good square. And then if for some reason I move this tonight, either to like back to here, which I would not do, or like down to here just for a second, or over to here even, just someplace. If for whatever reason I move my knight, then this bishop at this square has nice range down these diagonals. And I like that. Even though it's not necessarily applicable right then, if he pulls this knight out, then it is applicable. And that did become a thing in our game. So I move my bishop forward, and he brings his knight out. Now, from his perspective, he probably saw these two pieces, and they saw something more like danger, 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 danger. Because, it's kind of like when you're new, it's like vague threats. You don't know what the dude's planning. Like, what is he going to do? Is he going to somehow magically... Like, I always had this fear that somehow this bishop could do some funny business down here and just, like, magically just... And somehow, like, some trick. You're always worried about some trick. So, moving that knight up, the best move is d4, still, according to the engine. But I still think, development is a good idea. So he moves up, and from his perspective, that does make sense, because if I moved, it does. Oh, there's a different move I'm actually thinking of. This is just defending these pawns nicely, so they're nicely defended now. So, when I draw these arrows, you gotta, when they're defensive, you can't let it be red, man. This looks ugly. They're defended. You're being defensive. Why that's not defensive. It's red. There we go. That's better. So, he's defending his stuff, his material, and that's good. But that also allowed me to both castle and, there's nothing wrong with allowing me to castle. I guess, let's see, what was my best move? My best move, according to the engine, would have been c6. So, c6 would have been okay, because it would have gotten this bishop out of my face pretty quickly. Because he can't take, because he would be taken by a pawn, and I'm ready to castle kingside. So I see where that's a good variation. I will remember that, because that would be very interesting. He would have had to move back down to maybe here, and then if I continued pushing, I could push this pawn out, and then he'd have to move down to here, and then it'd be kind of like a Roy Lopez with the non-exchange variation, Roy Lopez. But anyway. So, we go forward with the game. I castle. It's not the best move, but I did it, so deal with it. And then his next move is actually pretty bright. I like this. He takes his bishop, right? And he moves it down to c4, attacking this pawn. So, now that attack on this pawn right here is really useful. because when someone castles, that's actually still a weak point. It's not just for, like, I used to think about it as just like, yeah, okay, scholars mate, whatever. But no, that F7 pawn's a permanent weakness. And this pawn is a permanent weakness. This one I'll highlight this one in green. This pawn is a permanent weakness in white's when they castle. He never castled, which he probably should have, but he never castled. And so his next move was bishop to c4, and that attacks that pawn and puts nice pressure on that area. And if he were to just capture, that would have been, yeah. Again, my best move supposedly would have been knight takes e4. And I didn't want a knight trade, though. I don't know why that's the best move. I probably could. I'll explore the variation, see why. It even says that he would then have to play. He would then play knight f3. He should then play knight f3 as a response. So that's even more confusing. The engine. I agree with what Vasilia Ivanchuk said. Sometimes the engine it doesn't tell you why it's doing what it's doing. It just does it. It has like these 60 trillion lines of theoretical nonsense that you can't really comprehend. Anyway, the next move we have here is my favorite. You know, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. It's to move this pawn, this beautiful pawn, to the square. Yes. Because then I get to do one of my favorite things when I move that pawn out, which is this. And then the knights are in a sort of symbiotic relationship. And you'll see that very commonly with openings. So his response to this, he should have gone bishop to b3 according to this because, well, b3. So here, yeah, should have gone to here according to this. Just back the hell up. Oh no, wait, nope. It changed its mind. It's now said d3. Yep. But bishop down. But now bishop to b3. He's still down. It's still black's better in this situation. Then after my knight move, oh wait. It's his turn. My bad. So he plays. He moves his knight up, and that's perfectly appropriate. So he moves his knight up. And now he's got some control over the center. He's exerting control over these squares. He's got this square. And he's also got this square. So that's pretty cool. He's got all of these squares under his control. And that's really useful. So, basically, looking at it from his perspective, I think this is useful because you can see where he got his ideas. Now, knight b to d7. That was my next move. Now, white, in this case, based on his responses, he is down only 0.24. If he'd have castled here, he'd have been down 0.28. If he'd have played d3, he'd have been down 0.02. But he did not play any of those moves, I do not believe. He played a strange move. He played knight to a4, which is just bizarre. So he moves his knight over there. Now, my only theory for this is that he thought he was defending something. You should see. I wish you could see the bar going down slowly. I think he thought he might have been defending this square because I think he thought maybe I wanted to go down here and then there'd be a double attack on this pawn from these two knights. But I had nothing that elaborate planned out. I think he just made a knight on the rim, just forgot knight on the rim is grim kind of thing. But anyway, moving on. He goes, I put this pawn out to, get rid of that bishop. Now, I'd like to note that I was looking forward to this pawn right here. I wanted it to take, and that's because of the next few moves. I was getting ready to fianchetto. So, when you're getting ready to fianchetto, that is when you move it up to here. So, and that's a perfectly nice square for the bishop. So, you fianchetto, and then you're now kind of laser beaming this general direction. At max extent, it can even hit the rook. So it's a very powerful place to put your... And since that pawn's in the way there, notice that also prevents him from targeting my f7 pawn. So there's some space. I got some breathing room. Plus, that pawn's defended by this knight. And, yeah, this pawn is also defended by this knight now. So, like, I mean, there's a lot of things you got to keep in... You got to take into consideration. So he takes. I could take with that knight. And, there's actually not shit he could do about it. It says, what I should have done was, play e4 here. And, what I actually did was, I just straight up fianchettoed. I probably should have played e4 there. But don't worry. It doesn't matter, Engine. Don't worry. You'll be happy soon. So, then I think this is probably the weirdest thing I did. Well, first of all, I think that's probably the best explanation. He thought maybe this knight would come down here. And if this knight comes down here, there would have been an attack on that pawn. But why he... And, you know, see, now that pawn's gone and up there, he moved back to defend it again. So that really adds credence to my hypothesis that he is trying to both attack this pawn and defend that pawn. And he's exerting control over the center with both his bishop. Whoa, that's an off arrow. With both his bishop and his knights. And I think that's his general goal. And, but... my trickery is afoot. So I figured he wouldn't be able to respond well to this. So, you know, logically what you do when something like this happens is you take a piece and you move it up. And then that becomes attacks. There's a threat. So you make a threat. And how I respond to that threat is interesting. I decided to treat it like an exchange Roy Lopez. Because... regardless of whether he takes... okay. Well, I think the engine will be on my side here. He should have... no, it's not. It's on his side. Whoa. Whoa. Really? He actually did the best move. Good job, guy. Good job, guy. Wow. Wow. Just wow. I did not know that. I would have expected you would not take with the D pawn. I wouldn't have taken with the D pawn. I would have taken with the E pawn actually, because that just seems more rational. But maybe the idea is that there's more valuable material over here, and I don't know. But I mean, like there's the most this opens up your queen, and it's not an open file. I mean, it's anything but that really. I mean, it's you have one of your own pawns in the way, so it's not open. It's not even semi-open until that pawn gets taken. Then it eventually becomes an open file. But I'm surprised. So he did the right thing there according to the engine. I still don't think it's right for the type of game this was. What the engine is saying, it should have been D takes C3, knight to C5. So that would have been like this. And then knight down to C5, I believe. Yep, knight down to C5. So then I'm attacking his... I see why, because then I'm attacking his bishop. And that's a very computery move. I don't like that. It's gross. It's disgusting. Don't you ever... whoops. I mean, sorry. He should have done... this, and then I should have moved my knight down to C5. Then I should have moved my knight down to C5. That's when I should have done it. And apparently that would have been the best thing to do for me. Let me see. Let me just double check that. What does it say to do next? Let's see if that's the best engine move here. I have a shorter video of this that I'll upload, but it's saying knight c5 is, yeah, it's saying knight c5 is the best. So knight c5 would have been good, but anyway, he takes with that pawn. Then I move this pawn out, and there's a reason I did that. It says white's better right now, but he takes. Now let's see what the engine says he should have done there. is play d6. So in other words, you should have played this. Tried to advance that pawn. And that would have been a good idea. But he did not. He captured. That would have given me some issues. I would have been pissed if he'd fucking played that. Oh my god, I fucking had an aneurysm. Because if he'd played d6, you know, things would have gone differently. But anyway, he fell for the bait, took the pawn. Rook takes. Bishop takes. Now, we have this interesting point where he sees that I notice his knight's been under attack for a while now, and I wanted to. I could have attacked. I didn't want to move my bishop, so I just, you know, yeah. He's now attacking that pawn. That's a weird response. Like I said, the best move would have been, of course, the best move at this point would have been queen to e2. Apparently, queen to e2. And that would have saved him. Or no, bishop to e3, castles. So the top three moves, bishop to e3 is the best. And actually, that's what he does. He made the best move there. That is pretty good. He made the best move. So that is good. He targeted that pawn. Congratulations on best engine move, buddy. And, yeah, so he ended up targeting that pawn. And basically, they say I should go knight c5, but, you know, I'm a rebel, so I don't do that. I just did this. And that makes a threat to his knight. So his best move would have been knight to d4, which is exactly what he plays. Again, the best move. So he's not playing badly. I would just like to note that he's not playing badly. It's kind of funny. He's actually one up at this point. He's ahead of me. He's doing pretty good. So my best move would be bishop to d5, it says. But I moved queen to c7. That's the second best move. So I made it the second best move. And the second best is all it takes. He should have here moved queen to d2. He did not. He instead moved bishop to there. Now, I don't even know if that's on the list. From his perspective, he's attacking my bishop. He's got the support of the knight and the support of the pawn. So he's well defended. Well defended. He's got these two buddies just holding his hand. And that's pretty good, you know. Like I said, it was Pride Month, so we gotta use multiple colors here. But this attack on my bishop is invited. I wouldn't have made the pawn move if I had not seen that this directly led over to that. I actually conceptualize it weirdly. I conceptualize it as this, and then this. I conceptualize moves a lot differently than other people do. I almost picture it as being a U shape, because you can go sort of like down here, and then all the way to here. Or you can go this way and all the way to here. So it's like this is the path the knight takes. The knight can take these two paths, or you can view it the other way. I mean, you can view it both ways. It really doesn't matter. You can also view it as the knight goes just like doot, doot, and then doot, or doot, and then boop, 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 doot, doot, boop, doot. And either way is a valid way of looking at it, I guess. I mean, you know, that's just how I view my. I like to use this as kind of my hyperopic view of knights, as I call it, because you can just immediately visualize what squares they're able to attack just by kind of imagining it like this. Because you have this little surrounding area, so that's his knight's well placed in the center, and yeah, I mean he has a much better piece activity than me. It's funny that I can't believe he lost the game. Actually, it's kind of surprising, but it's only because it was a trap. I mean, the whole thing was a trap. Now, I don't know about this bishop move. This bishop move seems a little dubious, because like, okay, queen to d2, that's not on the list of best moves, trust me. Because this knight is defending this area. It's defending this pawn right here. And it is also defending that area right there. So it's defending this. And it's basically attacking this. So that's your thing. If you move the bishop, this bishop, over to here, you end up getting attacked. But I don't think he saw that. I think he just was focusing in on probably just generally this area. Like, you know, looking at the queen side and not really focusing much on what's there. Maybe focusing on the fact you could take in both directions, like, you know, because you could take this way, or you could take this way, or you could go over here and take this pawn, or you could retreat, or you could resign, and just taking a shot. Anyway, needless to say, I would like to point out though, you know, without the rules, without like the arrows, it's really kind of hard to conceptualize what the knight does. Like, you can focus, if you don't have that, like, mnemonic, you might be focused on, like, this. Whoops. Like, these areas. You might not notice that it can take this. That's hard to notice because I like to conceptualize it. Notice that knights can take on diagonals. They're just separated from each other. They're like diagonal islands. Knights are great at taking pawn islands as a result. That's not like a thing I learned in a book. I just kind of figured that out myself. So, anyway, needless to say, knight takes. So now we have this interesting position. This is getting very complicated very quickly. But, you know, this knight here is viable. And, anyway, this knight here is viable. And, it takes, and that's what I wanted him to do. I wanted him to take that as weird as it sounds, that's what I was hoping for, because then I was going to recapture with the queen. I instantly recapture. So I am now I'm up a lot of material. I'm not sure how much. He's down quite a bit. But yeah, and my queen's in a really nice place. I like where my queen's positioned. I mean, there's he's got these doubled pawns now. His pawn structure is not really that great. He does have these 3 pawns. He could castle at any time. That would be a good idea, but he didn't do any of that. So we have, this bishop still attacking this pawn. There's not really much to fear because, you know, I mean, even at this point, my knight could take, so it's really not that much. But it's his move now, so he moves over out of the way of my knight and into the way of my knight. Yeah. So that didn't help him. I bet you that's what he was thinking, is that he was going to move over here. I've done that before when I was new. I moved my bishop, and then this dude just went like, pop, and caught it. And then so if I took this, if I took this pawn right here, it is check. But I think what he might have been thinking was that I could take the rook somehow. I can't take the rook. There's no way. Because my knight's range from this square would extend to where I came from. And over to here. And over to here. And then basically on this side, the board ends, so nothing. Not like literally nothing. These are my I only have four moves on that area. So I think he made a prophylactic king move to there. And the best thing would be to move queen to g4, it says. So over to here. Queen to g4 would be the best. And but that still does not help. Oh, he is down 12 points. I'm up 12 points of material. Even if he moves queen to g4, I'm up 12 points of material, so I'm up 12. So he moves his king there, and now it's just atrocious. I don't even want to read the number. No, he's still around 12, but the best move is considered rook A to d8, which would be this. I didn't do that. I just decided to go for a queen check. That's not. I don't know why the queen check's not on the list because that's cool as hell. Um, what's the response? I wonder what the computer would respond. How does it? King to c1. That's what it says to do. King to c1. Let's see what he does. Not king to c1. He goes right in the middle of the danger. Now that is a bad idea. But now I want to go back. This prophylactic king move, I think I really think he thought I was going to go there, check him, and then do something nefarious, like, I don't know, somehow jump over and take his. You never know. You have these kind of nebulous threats that you're worried about your enemy. You don't know. They can know something theoretical that you don't. Do a bunch of fancy tricks. And he moved his king right there. Which is bad. He probably thought, it's defended by the queen, so he probably thought it's good because my queen's defending me, so I'm all safe and whatnot. But he's not, because queen check, and then that he should have moved back to c2. He did not move back to c2. He moved over to here, ready to take my pawn. And then now I would like to just point out, and I pointed this out in the shorter video I made, but it was way lower quality. That it's hard to conceptualize check, because you just see a square. I mean, you just see these squares. There's a bunch of squares, dude. Like, a bunch of squares, dude. Like, that's all it is. It's just a bunch of squares. And my knight's right here, and his king's right here. So it's like, when I do this, it's like not like, it's kind of like confusing, because you just see, okay, he moved a knight. There's no magical formula telling you that this is check. I mean, there is a formula telling you it's check. It's the rules of the game, but it is check. And so in order to escape, he takes my pawn. But it's funny, spotting checks again. That's the problem, is that, like, you then go over to here and it looks innocuous until you realize that from there it's check again. So I moved over to there, and I'm defended by pawns. That's the even worse part. So it's not only check, it's pawn check. Now, I had this instinct to then take his queen after he moved. And that was a really good instinct. I feel like my instinct is developing. I mean, this is not an impressive game. I'm not saying this is an immortal game or anything, or that I'm like the best. There's actually a mate in 1, apparently, which would just have been queen to e5. So let me just show you that real quick. If I just did queen to e5, is that queen to e5? That's queen to d5. My bad. Where is that variation? I want to delete that. That's not right. That's terrible. Where'd that variation go? Where'd my variation go? We're delete that is a defacement upon humanity, and we cannot let that stay alive. Queen to d5 check. Found it. Alright, we're deleting that move. That one's not what I wanted. That was not what I wanted. It was not what I wanted at all. So, if you just move here, you're protected by the knight, and that's... I think checkmate? Yeah, it's checkmate. And I'll explain why. That is... I mean, I had a missed win. So, I did have a missed win. That would have been the easiest way to checkmate him. That's really cool. I'm going to use that later if I ever get into a similar position. That's very cool. I mean, that's so cool, because this cuts off escape squares. And, the queen has full hegemony over this whole row. And just painting a picture of what the queen is controlling and defending, it's just terrible. It's absolutely atrocious. Like, how much territory I control with these pieces. It's bad. I mean, this knight alone just controls. That's how much of the board I control. He controls, like, all his rooks are still inactive. He never activated his rooks because he never castled. So, but that's not how the game went. The game didn't go that way. So let's go back. He moves there. I take his queen. He takes, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. I move my rook there. There's a reason behind this. Now, my reasoning was that I might be able to get a knight trade a knight for a rook, because he might not think, because he's made these mistakes before. I thought maybe he would be naive and let me just do this and grab the rook once it took. So just to illustrate, grabbing the rook like that once he took with the rook, like something like, say, he does this, and then I'm just crazy up material. He's just done. It's over. And his best bet would be then rook to d1, and then targeting my knight. And really, I could just move my knight about, like, yeah. So he would then move rook to d1, and I would probably respond with something like moving this knight. Oh, I know what I would do. I'd probably still do the pawn check like this. Yeah, I don't know what would work. It would depend, because it depends on human behavior. It would be a really long game if you played based on just computer theory. Let me see how long this is. Yeah, the game goes. This one line here that the engine suggests is just terribly long and complicated. But I'm just showing you that for the sake of showing you that. What actually ends up happening is this. He stops just short of getting into serious trouble. And I decided to move there. Now, he cannot take. He might have wanted to take, but you cannot take because, as you know, this knight's defending. So he moves that way. And that makes perfect sense. He probably thought he was safe because, I mean, he knew he couldn't move this way. He can't move this way because of the rook. But he probably thought, generally speaking, he was like he couldn't be checked again by anything. But this knight's controlling this square, so when this rook moves back up, it checks him again. And he's probably like, what? What? God damn it. Now the computer suggests king to g3. And really, I think that's his only move. Or no, it's not. No, king to g3 would have been smarter. Because king to g3 is... Yeah, that would have been a good move, because that would have prolonged the game. But there's one option that's mate in 4 if you move king to f5. Which he did not do that. But that would have been hilarious if he did, if you moved king over to f5. And then, yeah, that would have been funny. What is the king to f5 checkmate? I want to see that. Let's show that. So king to f5. And then we probably have it's mate in, there's mate in 4. So then we have g6 check. So it's very similar to the actual game. G6 check. Now notice he can't move anywhere because of the rook walls, I like to call it. Whoops. Why is this doing this to me? Must you? So there's the rook wall, which is pretty scary. It's just slicing down the middle of the board, and he doesn't really have much recourse. That's a lot of control. The rook, oh, by the way, the rook in the, people say the rook in the center is good. No, the rook anywhere has the same moves, because it occupies one square, so it always has 14 moves. It has 7 plus 7. 7 in this direction, 7 in that direction. Because there's 8 squares on the board, it's occupying 1. 7 minus 1 is 8. Simple math. And anyway, so let's see what this mate in, that's mate in 3. So then he has to go king to g5. So over to here. King to g5. And then it goes h6 check. And I didn't even... there's so many ways I could have checked this dude that I like mine the best, but... Because, it's my style. So then king takes at h6, right? And then it's mate in 2, so then you go rook to e5. Really? Oh yeah, rook to e5, cutting off all of that. So the rook wall's now here. He's boxed in. rook d5, and that rook's defended by the knight. And yeah. And now it's a mate in one. You just it suggests that he plays whatever, g3, f3, whatever. It doesn't matter. The top move is b3, like that, kind of getting a pawn thing. And then there's several ways to check him. There's two ways to check him in one. One is rook to h5 check, which is boring. Rook to h5 checkmate, and that's one. Let's go back. Now there's another one, which is knight to g4. So that would be knight to g4 checkmate. Knight to g4 checkmate. So that is a really cool set of checkmates right there. And the reason that is checkmate is because of the rook wall. This massive wall penetrating all these squares, defending, and then the king. Basically, I'm gonna use blue for this because whoa, not the Windows key, buddy. Calm down there, killer. So the king controls all these, like basically prevents him from moving anywhere near the king, and so that's checkmate. And yeah. Did not mean to hit the Windows key. Sorry about that. I wish I could edit that out, but I'm lazy, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. But anyway, you get the idea. So I'll get better at managing the UI in a bit. Apologies for all the little blips and stuff where I make a little off suggestion here. But we're gonna go back to the main line. So rook to d6. And then over to here. Then now I got this instinct that now from his perspective you can see why these moves are logical. I got this instinct that this was the best way of doing things right here, moving this knight up, even though that this rook right here is defended in by this. Just this rook right here is defended. I wanted it to be defended by this as well. So I wanted to give some defense right there. And I didn't know why. I just had an instinct for it. So I think instinct is built. And it's the root cause for it is this knight. I wanted to move this knight down here and then attack this rook. So you got that nice little combination there. He moves his rook there. I move over to here. He lines up his rooks, and that's why I wanted to. So he moved it down. I took, and then he took, and that was the final nail in the coffin. Because now it's not obvious. Again, I find it weird because like there's nothing telling you what's check. There's nothing telling you what's check, but you got to notice something. The king. The king is defending all of these pawns. So they're all good. So if this pawn decides to move up, it's not just a defensive thing. It's an aggressive thing. It's a check. So we do a g6 check. Now, he only actually has one move. He cannot go left. He cannot go this way. He has to go here. And so then, what happens next? Well, if you're observant, I find it kind of difficult. You can see that this knight's defending the rook, but this knight also has the option to check the king like that. And so from there, you move the knight in, check, and then it's just a simple. I wonder if there's any other options that I had to check him. Mate in 3, there's a really long convoluted one, mate in 6, but the mate in 1 is just the simple one that I did, which was this rook there. And that's just it. I just wanted to show from his perspective and just kind of get a glimpse of to what he might have been thinking in the game. So let's do a speed run through it real quick, just to you know, analyze it a bit. So he moves that pawn up. Timid move. Timid move. So he moves that pawn up. I move there. Now, keep in mind that is already threatening where his pawn is about to go, which is why that was kind of a stupid move and why the engine suggests that I take. So the engine suggests that I take. I then just admit it. I didn't take. I just played natural chess like like in the old days, and then he did a good job of pinning my that piece so that it you know, it wants to move to this square. It wants to do this. Move down here and then give support to this because this is in need of support. But I move, so I just developed my bishop, and you know, I got some diagonals. When his knight moves out, I can then, you know, I castled, and I was always prepared to do this, challenge that knight, give it a little bit of an attack. Whoops, wrong thing. And yeah, so he moves his bishop there, which I thought was pretty good, you know, just attacking the f7, the weak f7 pawn. Maybe you have some future ideas that he could have used to get check. But that enables me to do what I wanted to do, which is one of the things that's very common in openings. I don't know, I wonder if there's a name for this where you put your knights in that sort of symbiotic where they defend each other. I don't know. Never heard of a name for it. There should be, because it's a name for incuding. But let's know. He then moved this knight out, or whoa, this knight out here, and so he moved this knight out here, and now he's attacking my pawn. He's defending this pawn. He's got some control over the center. He's got this square, which is a nice square. Between you know, moving to here, where it's flashing, I'm going to highlight this yellow square. He could honestly attack here and here. And that would be interesting, because if bishop, like, what about bishop takes? It's kind of out there, but, like, there could be some plan with knight to G5, and then some bishop tricks, and then, yeah. But anyway, this is a speed run, so we're just going to review everything. My knight goes over there. His knight makes that weird move. I think, again, he thought that I was going to go down here or something and then double attack on his... Oops. I think he thought I was going to go down here and double attack on his pawn, because then we've got two attackers, and it's just a mess. So that might have been the thing. But anyway, I put that pawn there, getting the bishop out of the way. Then I got ready to fianchetto. He took the pawn, which is what I was hoping for, because if he didn't take the pawn, then I have nothing to target. So then I targeted that. I wanted to give him some bait. He moves the knight back. Now, that was a clever move. So moving your knight back is good in this situation, I would say. I think the engine... No, the engine says he should castle. Or, no, it says top move would be d3. At this point, I'm not sure. I think that's kind of a moot point, d3, right here. But whatever. Yeah, I don't see exactly what that does, aside from maybe control these two squares. Then you put your knight here, and then you have control over this and I don't really know. The machine's crazy. Anyway, he moves up, and that's pretty wise. But he's also blocked his own sort of attack on my f7. Yeah, so like. It's just, yeah. But then I decided to move that bishop out, threatening his knight, and he moved this pawn up, and that was a wise choice. But I decided to just take and then double his pawns. He played the best move. I played this. He did not play the best move there. I believe the best move there actually was. I think that's when he should have. Oh no. Yeah, he should have played d6. Alright, he should... No, now I'm saying d takes c6. So, yeah, he did play the best move. Or he could have castled, and then then I would have taken. But it doesn't really matter. So, anyway, then I take with the bishop. He helped me develop there. And then it's funny, when you get better at chess, I notice you can kind of predict when you see someone's style, you know how they're going to react. And I figured he would react to this by jumping over to here and then taking that, trying to take that. So he does, and I put my queen there. Now the best move, apparently, they say, is to move my bishop, but bishop to d5, which would have been, would that even have been possible? Yeah, it would have been. It would be right here. So bishop to d5. That's their recommendation. But they're not thinking like a human. They're not thinking of. I think it's thinking materialistically, like you don't want to get your bishop taken. I like queen to c7. Oh! Now that it's calculated more, it agrees with me. Yep, I made the best move. After it got to a certain depth, it said queen to c7 was best. It does, in fact, agree. And in this position, he's actually up material. So then he makes he chooses to move his bishop to here, and you know, I think he wants to exchange bishops, is what I'm thinking. He's double attacking this, but if you look at the bar, if you can see the bar on the right, it just went down right in favor of black because I am way up in material. And basically, this knight is directly attacking that bishop, so that was a bad idea. So takes. And now I have a really good position, and I'm up a lot of material. So, now notice, he probably then noticed that this knight could take, so he tried to move it out of the way. Now, it would have been better to go here. I wouldn't have taken then because he's supported by a pawn. This pawn supports him, so that would have been fine. But then he moved there, and I just took. And then he moved his king out, I think prophylactically, again reviewing, because I could go check. Here, and then to here. Whoops, and then to here. I hate right-clicking. So here, check. And I think check should probably be yellow. What do you guys think? Anyway, moves up. Check. And I think the difference between me and a lot of chess YouTubers, and I'm not some like titled player who's like pretending to be like God or anything. I'm just showing you an amateur game between two dumbasses trying to have fun. You know? It's a lot more comforting. So he takes my pawn, and then I move over there. And now I hope these checks are starting to become more visible, and you're starting to get an understanding of how knights work. And then why I took the queen. There's a reason for that. I wanted him to get the rooks. Because, you know, a queen, okay, if he had taken the knight, I still would have been better off material-wise. I don't know if I'd have been better off piece activity-wise, though. So I'm kind of glad it went how it did. So his idea then, eventually later, was to line up the rooks like this, and then go to here, and, you know, kind of, yeah. But that didn't end up happening. I had this, these knights defend various squares, so I'm going to color them differently. These knights defend these two squares, so the rook can move up to either of those two squares and check the king safely. So the rook moves there, king moves there, and I still just picture him trying to take, wondering why he can't, because he doesn't seem to understand how knights move. That seems to be his basic challenge. Because it's also hard because there's an invisible wall there, basically. It's like when you run out of space in a game, you get to the edge of the map, and rooks are like that. They have an invisible wall. He also can't go down, well, he can go down here, actually. He can go down here. And that would have been a wise choice. Or here. Those would have been some good escape squares. He really should have gone, like king to g3. That would have been the best one. Because then he's defended by pawns and stuff. There are probably some knight things I could do to get, like I could move the rook out of the way, and then I've got g3 targeted. So if I'd have just moved my rook back one, and then moved my knight over, and he made some dumb moves, which he probably would have. I mean, not that he's a dumb person, I'm not saying that. But I got this instinct to move this knight over here, even though, because I wanted to defend this bishop. So, defending the bishop, even though this knight is also defending the bishop, I just wanted to add an extra layer of defense, I would say. So, like, just defend it excessively. Because and it worked because of how the end game went. Because the goal was entirely to when I saw him line up his rooks, as I said, move down here, right here to this point, and then from there attack the rook. And so you have this attack on the rook, and knight moves down. He moves his rook down. The rook gets taken. We trade rooks. Now that was the nail in the coffin, because then that pawn comes up, and like I said, picture the king being green, and it's the father of protection. It is protecting these pieces. So you have this protected, and this is protected by the king right now. So when this pawn, when it moves up, it's actually an attacker. The square becomes an attacking square, and it eliminates those two squares. We'll just make those red. And that's useful. So pawn moves up, checks him. He moves to the only square he can, because bishop wall all the way up and all the way here. And yeah, then finally knight check. So the knight goes check, and there we go. We have that spells it out. Checks are not easy to spot, I would say, sometimes with knights. But then it goes nail in the coffin, because he can't take these pawns, even if he wanted to. So, like, for example, I should make a dummy move real quick. He can't take these pawns even if he wanted to. He can't take them. A rook e8 check. It's saying rook takes e8 check. That's what he should do. Rook takes e8 check. Yeah, that would have been a wise choice if I'd have been dumb enough to do that, but I'm not dumb enough to do that. Anyway, my point is that he couldn't take the pawns if he wanted to, because they're all defending each other, and he can't go this way because you can't be right next to a king. So these squares are all off limits. Plus the knight is controlling this square. This knight is controlling this square. And all these squares, like I said. I hate to be like a broken record, but that's what I'm here to be, so yeah. Anyway, then it was lights out for him, because rook wall, now that rook wall extends all the way down to here. He can't move back up because the pawn and the rook. So this whole rook takes is moot. He's been checkmated. He cannot get out of check. He can't go this way. He can't go that way. He's done. And so that's the game from his perspective. We just ran through it real quick. And I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's a very interesting game to watch, just because you see some maneuvering. And it reminds me of old games they used to play back in the day. I want to find similar games, because I'm sure some older games. I have this book on history of chess, and new players playing games kind of model the history of chess. So, like, intermediate players today might be considered like prodigies of the old days. And there you go. That's how the game went. It looks so cool, because of the strategy and the thought process behind it. Just one more time, let's run through, and then I'm going to stop bothering you with it. I think my perspective looks way cooler, because, you know, you've already seen my thought process, I know, but just careful approach. I always like to either open with that, or maybe sometimes e4. I play the London a lot as white, so I play d4 sometimes, but, or like, I might even play something weird, like maybe move this up and fianchetto. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I could do. The best move is e5, it says right here, but I wanted to just take it slow because I didn't know if he had some scary plan. And then, you know, the rest is history. Then we go there. He pins that. Pins that. Can't move it. I want to. Sad, so I move my bishop. He moves his knight out, defending his bishop. Then I castle. He moves there, correctly attacking my f7 pawn, but also freeing me to do exactly what I wanted to do, which is move this out to here, and then place my knight in this position right here so that my knights are defending each other. And that is actually what led to his downfall. Plus this weird knight move. I don't know if he thought my knight was going to... Like I said, I don't know what he was thinking there. From this perspective, I can kind of see that he might have thought I was going to do something like this. This, and then this. And he really can't do much about it. Because, I mean, if he were to take... If I was to move this knight down there, he can't really take back, because then I'll just take with the pawn. And then I would then take this pawn, and then also be harassing several pieces. So yeah. If you can get your knight over to someplace like this, it's kind of cool because you can you can like snag the bishop. So that's something worth noting. Anyway, I didn't move that up. You can see from my perspective, I wanted that bishop out of my way. Then got ready to fianchettoed. Then he moves his knight over, correctly defending this. And then I decided I didn't like that knight. Well, it's not really that. It's not that. It's not that. It's not like I decided I didn't like the knight being there. I think that's the next move. Yeah. So he puts a pawn down, attacking. I just take, and then I double his pawns. Now, I'm surprised that's the top engine move. I don't think that's correct. I want to put it in chess base, and we'll see. But anyway, I put that pawn out. It's bait. He did the right thing, but the right thing was bad. Then I push this over, forcing the knight there. Deliberately. It's weird. It sounds weird to deliberately sacrifice a bishop, but I think it's a pretty good sacrificial idea. I didn't expect him to move his rook right there, his bishop right there. I think he was looking for a normal like bishop trade, like you know, he takes, then I take with the queen. I don't really know, but anyway, I took with the knight and then take, and then I have this nice. I love that structure. He moves his bishop out, and again, it's very confusing, but from his perspective, we can see why he might have thought that, because my knight was attacking the bishop down here, so he probably thought he was out of the way, and just didn't really pay attention. Then he had that prophylactic move, which, you know, like I said, from here, so you jump over to here, and then jump over to here, and it's check. So I think he moved that prophylactically, and then I checked him, and then he moved down there, which is probably the worst move you could do. I checked him, and then checked him again, and then he moves down. I took his queen. Rook takes. Rook moves. And, yeah. So then I check, and... You know, these two squares are controlled by these two knights, so no safety. And I got that instinct that I should move this up. I think, you know, you don't necessarily know why you do something in chess when you get better. I'm not really that great, but like if you start getting an instinct for stuff, like I knew I could attack it this way, so I wanted to have that. That means it won't be the defender forever. So it's no longer defending this piece. That means the king could have taken had I not moved this knight to defend. So it goes like this: take, check, check, and then game over. And I hope you enjoyed that video. That's analysis from both sides, and I think it's pretty insightful. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. This has been One Eye Joe here with another chess video. Congratulations for watching this video. You are now entitled to live and work in the United States of America.